Another major twist in this compelling story with new claims of abuse and growing public support. The question is, could the Menendez brothers finally be closer to freedom? For more, we're joined by attorney and former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani, live in Los Angeles. Neama, thanks for your time on this. The family's call for resentencing has gained significant traction, hasn't it, in recent weeks? Do you think it will be enough to sway the district attorney's decision on resentencing?
Sylvia, I do think so. And here in Los Angeles, we're in the middle of a highly contentious election for district attorney. And George Gascon has gotten some criticism for being soft on crime, but also doing the right thing and the just thing. And this is the type of case where the law and justice, they really diverge. Under the law, there's not really a good self-defense argument here, but the just result, if Eric and Lyle were the victims of sex abuse at the hands of their father, maybe for them to be released early after serving 35 years.
And this is that evidence that was in the first trial that was then not allowed in the second trial, these allegations of abuse. They weren't fully examined in deep time at the time because it was like unusual to hear that, that men on sexual abuse was happening. If this was brought in today, if this was tried today, how would it impact the brothers' case?
Possibly it would, but the challenge is we're talking about self-defense. And Eric and Lyle, they shot their parents in the back of the head while they were on the couch eating ice cream and watching TV. There has to really be an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. One of the brothers had moved out. One was about to move out and go to UCLA. So the question is, does it squarely fit within the four corners of self-defense law? Did they have the right to use deadly force under the circumstances? I understand that they were the victims of abuse, but we also don't want vigilante justice. So it's still uncertain whether the evidence would come in today. But again, if there is an argument that they should have been convicted of first-degree murder and maybe manslaughter would have been more appropriate, well, that makes a big difference in sentencing. We're talking about 10 years versus life without the possibility of parole.
Neama, in the original case, there was a thought that they might just get a manslaughter charge on that because of the abuse allegations. There's something that was mentioned this morning called, is it Marsy's Law over there? Can you explain to Australians what that is and how that could affect this?
Marsy's Law provides victims of the crime the opportunity to be heard. And here we're talking about Kitty and Jose's family members, and they all spoke at that press conference today. The reason manslaughter is important is there's two types of self-defense under California law. There's perfect self-defense. That means you're at risk, you reasonably use deadly force. That means you're entitled to an acquittal or dismissal of the charges entirely. But California law also allows for imperfect self-defense. If the brothers genuinely believed that their father would kill them if they outed him as an abuser, even if that belief was unreasonable, it does reduce that murder to manslaughter. I think that's a good argument with respect to Jose, probably a little bit more challenging with respect to their mother, Kitty. So that's why, whether it's Marsy's Law or imperfect self-defense, it does have an impact on this case.
This, of course, was an enormous case when it played out in the first place. But now with Netflix shows and social media driving renewed interest in it, do you think this public attention could influence the judicial process? Could authorities feel some pressure that the public have certain expectations here?
Sylvia, that's absolutely right. I grew up in Southern California. I remember this case, and it really does go to show the power of a Netflix series. We've seen it time and time again where a documentary can affect a legal case. We saw it with Britney Spears and her conservatorship. R. Kelly, he was prosecuted after surviving R. Kelly. Bob Durst was brought to justice after the Jinx. And now the Netflix series Monsters. And the political reality is, in the United States, every prosecutor is either elected or appointed by someone who is. So public pressure, whether it's traditional or social media, can absolutely have an impact on a legal case.
So, as you said, there is an election due for the District Attorney's Office. How do you think we will see any action coming from this, or will they hold on this and try and punt it to the next District Attorney, apparently?
I think that District Attorney George Gascon will agree to a resentencing. The question is, according to the Menendez family's attorney, he's had this new evidence for more than a year. So why has he sat on it this long? I'm not saying there's politics at play. Maybe he's just backed up. But given his stance so far, the public statements, I believe that he will agree to a resentencing in the interest of justice. And if I had to guess, I expect Eric and Lyle to be out before the end of the year.
Wow, that is fascinating. Neama, how significant is this case in your view?
Well, it's very significant. And, we've seen it with Gypsy Rose. We're talking about abusers who are standing up the abused standing up against their abusers. And obviously a lot has changed, in the late 80s and early 90s. There was not a whole lot of discussion of men being sexually abused. And obviously we're seeing it more and more. I mean, we're seeing allegations just this week in the Diddy case where a lot of men have talked about being sexually assaulted, and a minor alleged that he was sexually abused. So there's a lot more awareness of this. And I think the law has changed. Let's not forget, the brothers, they were looking at the death penalty. Eric and Lyle, obviously jurors spared them that, but imagine had they been put to death, this would be a very different conversation. I think now there's both more awareness of sex abuse and mitigating factors in sentencing. It's not a one size fits all, obviously. If someone's suffering horrific abuse at the hands of their father, who's also abusing others, Roy Rossello, the boy band Menudo, has raised credible allegations, and their mother Kitty, if she was complicit in this and allowing access and grooming, then I don't think the just result is for them to spend the rest of their life in prison when they've already served 35 years.
Neama, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us this morning.